to our friends and family listening to us all over this great world, equal 1.5 million listeners, especially those guys that are over in the military bases all across this world that support what we do and send in questions and like to have guests. Well, right now, we've got the Jerry Maguire of Coaches. His name is Dennis Cordell from Coaches Incorporated, and we're going to listen to his story. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, we're doing very well, and thanks for taking the time out of your schedule. We know we were scheduled last week, but I guess things are going well.
They are, man. In fact, I'm down in beautiful Norfolk, Virginia, on my way to have a meeting and some lunch with head coach Bobby Wilder down here at Old Dominion University, one of my latest clients that I just signed. They got a big program coming on here, starting football this season. They're excited down here.
Just for our listeners to know that what you do and what you've done in the past, you've had a really interesting background. You're the one for EA Sports that signed up the assistants for Madden. You've got trading cards coming out with the athletes and people you've promoted. It seems like that little step forward has just exploded for you in this marketplace right now.
Well, yeah, it's hard to believe. I was talking with my old boss, Larry Kennan of the NFL Coaches Association the other day, and realized that this August, which I guess we're in right now, marks my 10th year in the industry. So I guess I'm an old-timer right now. But no, I enjoyed my time working at the NFL Coaches Association quite a bit as their executive director, being the legal counsel there. And the reason I left is I saw a real need for coaches to have representation that really focused on coaches. A lot of the agents who are out there working with coaches also represented players, and just always felt that inherently there were going to be some conflicts of interest there. So I went out, saw that the timing was right in the marketplace to go out there and try to rep coaches, and it's been great. 3.5 years at this agent business, and I love it.
Well, you just hit upon one question that a number of our listeners had, is that how much time does it take really to put down for the NFL coaches to sign their contracts? What things do they have to be careful of? And what are things that the average individual really has no concept at all? First off, we know most NFL fans have no concept of most things outside of their team winning and what trades are being made. But as far as your end goes, there's probably a lot more behind the scenes than a lot of fans really know when they see a coach. I mean, a lot of people call it a players' league. However, when you've got Parcells, the Jimmy Jones, Conwell, you've got a bunch of these big-name coaches that are signed to contracts, and there's probably a lot more than the average fan can really think of what goes into those.
The biggest thing that coaches deal with in contracts, and the reason I really want to get involved with them, is not necessarily the money or their power once they're in control, more so with what happens when they get fired. Unfortunately for coaches, this is a business of not if, but when things happen. Fans tend to call for the coach's head as soon as their team starts losing. As you mentioned, that's what fans follow, and always seems the coach is the guy to get the blame. So coaches need to be protected once that happens. And it can happen for a number of reasons, but it just does. One of the things that was going on in the NFL this year that was a really important issue is the upcoming lockout, work stoppage. So the language that we addressed for all the new contracts this year covering what happens to coaches if that scenario occurs was really important. For example, coaches have zero control over what happens. If the players go on strike or the owners lock out the players, the coaches can't do anything about it. However, they're going to get penalized. So the best language that we were able to get into a contract this year was up at the Bills, where at the worst, if the entire 2011 season is forfeited, those coaches will get 70% of what their contract is supposed to pay them. Unfortunately, there are other teams where, after 60 or 90 days of a work stoppage, the team reserves the right basically to cancel the contract of a coach. So here are guys who've moved themselves, moved their families, given up opportunities to coach elsewhere, particularly in the college ranks, who could be penalized harshly for that. So that was a really big issue this past season in the NFL.
Dennis, when you look down on a piece of paper or you go on the computer, which most of us do, especially sports guys are some of the most literate individuals as far as their passions go, when you see a coach put into position to really lead a squad, especially a young group, I really think that sometimes the owners cut the knees off these coaches, and having somebody like yourself go in and negotiate so they see the big picture. Years ago, it was easy to see a coach grow up with the team dominates for years. Then what happens is the coach wants to retire and take some time off to refocus. Now in this meat grinder that they have, I think the coaches are the rat. They're the ones that get sent down the river without any concept from really anybody looking at it. And what you do is really put that in a sort of a level playing field where when they bring in a coach, one of your guys, they get to build a team, work on a team, and they have certain things to protect them. So if the owner decides to change at any whim, and we know they do, your guys are protected.
That's exactly right, and I think you hit it right on the head when you said that sports fans are literate. I really believe that the internet has become a coach killer because everybody has a voice, and with the blogs and the fan sites, it's not so much in the NFL that the owners pay attention to that, but you'd be amazed at how many college administrators read the fan blogs that are out there. And it's great that fans are so passionate about things, but like you said, usually they don't understand everything that's going on behind the scenes and what it takes. And to call for some vocal fans on the internet to rally support about fire this guy and fire that guy, it creates problems for coaches, because these athletic directors, they pay attention to that stuff. And when they feel like, okay, we've lost our support for this guy, we've got to make a change. That can happen much quicker now in this information age than 15 years ago, before everybody had access to speak their minds. So I do think that's important. In college, we talked about the NFL, and one of the things I always try to do is to try to get multi-year deals for my guys. You talked about taking over a squad. You've got to change attitudes sometimes, because generally you're taking over for a place that hasn't been winning games, so there's something going wrong. So, to expect a coach to come in 1 or 2 years to change things around is pretty unrealistic in most places. So it is critical. In the college world, it's interesting because there's so many colleges, and athletic directors aren't necessarily focused on just football. I feel like they actually get taken advantage of more so than the NFL, simply because in college, most contracts in college, the standard will give a coach a multi-year deal, but if the school wants to fire him prior to the end of that contract, they can get out of paying him. A lot of times they only have to pay 120 days or 60 days or a year, but generally they don't have to pay the coach the remainder of his contract, which is a problem, because coaches don't necessarily realize that. The reason I love working with these guys is that they got into the business for the right reason. They want to help other people. They're great teachers. They're great motivators, good guys to be around, but they don't necessarily look out for themselves. They're team guys. They preach team nonstop. So when it comes to them to do their contracts, they basically want to say that, my team, be it a college or an NFL team, they're looking out for my best interest, which unfortunately this is a business where the colleges have their lawyers, NFL have their lawyers, and if a coach doesn't have representation, he's in trouble when it comes to that contract, which is so crucial.
Well, the other thing that you forgot to mention is that if there is a coach that comes available that is a big-name coach, whether it's in D1 or down to NIA, that if that big-name coach shows an interest at a school, on School A, well, the administrators in there will have to say, thank you very much for having the highest academic standards we ever had. You didn't quite win as many games as we thought. You're out, and this new big name is coming in so we can sell more T-shirts. You see it all the time in college, and I think it misrepresents the sport at times.
You're right. NCAA, in my opinion, is not necessarily my favorite organization.
Amen. Amen.
And I really do feel that they take advantage of kids. Not that they don't give kids opportunities, but the pressure is not on the kid to graduate. The pressure is on the kid to perform for his scholarship. And